Kereisos Daf. We're back to the amazing sugya of misasik. A person's intent doesn't match his action. Classic example is, a person has two fruits in front of him, one on the right, one on the left. He intended to grab and be over Issa Deraisa on Shabbos and rip it off the tree from the right, and he ended up ripping from the left. Rabbi Yeshua in the Mishnah says, misasik potter. Come Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Shimon Shazuri and explain that that's only in a situation where there are two minim, two types, two shemais, two different fruits. We're talking about a fig and a grape. But if somebody wanted to grab a grape and he grabbed another grape, then he would be chayiv. Comes Rabbi Yehuda and seemingly says the same thing. Rabbi Yeshua only said his statement when it's black and he grabbed the white instead. So what's the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon Shazuri? Comes Shmuel and explains that in a classic example where somebody were to grab a fruit from the left instead of from the right, everybody would agree that that's misasik and your potter. Where's the machlekes? In a very interesting case. A case with 4 steps. A person had an intent to grab grapes, and then he forgot about his intent and he wanted to grab the figs. But then his hand went to the right and grabbed the grapes, and he ended up with grapes. So he ended up with the initial intent, but he got there by mistake. In that case, Rabbi Shimon would hold that Rabbi Yeshua holds that he's chayiv, because at the end of the day, he accomplished what he set out to do. And Rabbi Yehuda holds that Rabbi Yeshua holds in that case that he's potter. Rava says we're talking about lekadim. Lekadim is that he reversed the order. For instance, a person has a lit flame in front of him and a candle that's unlit. So he wants to light a fire and then extinguish. Instead, he extinguished and then lit. So if it happened in one breath, he was throwing a flame with his mouth, and he lit after he extinguished, then everybody will hold his chayiv. Because, yes, he didn't light before he extinguished, but then he also didn't extinguish before he lit because it happened in one swoop moment. But if it happened in 2 breaths, one breath was he extinguished, and the second breath he lit the fire, in that case, Rabbi Shimon would hold that Rabbi Yeshua holds that he's chayiv, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that Rabbi Yeshua holds that he's potter. With that, we could also explain the machlekes in chayta b'gechalim. A person has a pile of coals. The bottom ones are suffocated, they're not lit, they're extinguished, and the upper ones are lit. And he flips them over, and what happens is the ones that are on top that were lit become extinguished, and the ones that were extinguished become lit. There's a manoma that says he's chayiv 2 chatois, one on havara and one on kiboy. He's lighting and extinguishing. There's another manoma that says he's chayiv on 1. So you could explain that his kavanah over here was to light and then to extinguish. And what happened was that it happened simultaneously. So his intent didn't happen, so that's why he's only chayiv 1. And according to Rabbi Elazar Rebbe Tzaddik, he's chayiv 2. There's a Amoraim that explain that we're talking about a blacksmith. And a blacksmith only wants extinguished coals. So what he was trying to do is to take the lit coals and extinguish them. But what happened was that the extinguished ones became lit, and that would be a mekalkel. That's ruining it for him because he only wants extinguished coals. So the question is, usually in Shabbos, when you ruin something, you're potter. We said yesterday there's an exception by mekalkel b'chabura. So over here, you're mekalkel b'havara, you're potter. And the other man, the Amar says, Rabbi Elazar Rebbe Tzaddik says, no, mekalkel b'havara, you're chayiv. And some say that the reason why the Tanna Kamma says you're potter by havara is because there's the famous machlokes. Why does the Torah go out of its way and say, only by lighting a fire, the Torah specifies it, and it's not included in the other 39 melachos. Rav Yosef says it comes to say that havara is lelav yatzas. You only get a lav, you don't get karas, you don't get skila. And the other man says that it comes to say lechalik, that if you do separate melachas, you chayiv in each and every one. So if you say that lav yatzas, that's the pshat that you potter. You potter because it's a lav, you don't get skila. Now there's some that say that's dafka when you don't have kavanah, because they hold like Reb Shimon that davar shem miskaven potter. Now, even though it's a psik reisha, it's going to happen, but it's melacha shein tzrich legufa. You don't want it, you don't need it. And in that case, Reb Shimon says you're potter. Now, Reb Elazar Rebbe Tzaddik holds like Rabbi Yehuda that says you're chayiv in such a case, and with that we finish the perek ha'oichal chayla. Says the Mishnah. We know that if you eat blood, you chayiv kares. What kind of blood? Says the Mishnah, even dam nechira. Usually when you do shechita, you go from right to left. Nechira is when you go from top to bottom, like we learned in Chulin. Ikur, the blood that comes out of Ikur, somebody tears out the two simonim, the trachea, the shkan, and the veshet. Hakaza is the initial blood that the neshama comes out with. It doesn't matter if it's a behema or a bird, if it's a kosher animal, a treif animal, you chayiv kares for the person that eats it. The machlokes b'davar tamtzis, that's the final blood from the shechita. Now, if the blood is gathered in the limbs, for instance, blood from the spleen, blood in the heart, beitzim, that is the beitzim of a bull or a ram. Another pshat in Rashi is beitzim muzaros, the eggs of a chicken that became heated from the sun or whatever, and they turned color, they turned red. And the blood of shratzim, that you potter. Now you mutter in the blood of fish, grasshoppers, and even humans. Chacham say it's also in certain conditions. There's a cloud that the Gemara brings that the isser of blood is only in something that's similar to birds and animals that have a tuma kala and a tuma chamura. They have a lighter tuma, not so stringent, and a more stringent, meaning the food itself becomes tamei, and stringent that they become mitama, b'masa, even somebody that lifts it without touching. And they also have an isser to eat before shechita, and they become mutter after shechita, whereas fish and grasshoppers don't have shechita. And they are a type of meat, whereas eggs are not. Have a wonderful day.